So how does a 3-month hospitalization of a child, or confinement actually, of a 10-year-old child in a prestigious pediatric hospital result in the death of a parent and allegations of sexual abuse, imprisonment, battery, and more? How does this happen? The Take Care of Maya case is the biggest hospital lawsuit to date. It awarded Maya and her family $261 million. This hospitalization of Maya started when she was 10 years old, and she's now 17. It has taken that long for this process to take place and to go to trial. Trial ended at the end of November of 2023. There was a documentary made called Take Care of Maya, and maybe some of you have heard about that documentary about her case. The trial was 2 months long. I watched every single day of that trial while it was live. You could see it in replay later on in the evening if you didn't see it live during the day. And again, after that trial was completed, after 2 months, this family was awarded $261 million. The Take Care of Maya documentary premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival on June 10th, 2023, was released on Netflix in June 19th, 2023, and I saw it on Netflix. This is a true story about this girl at age 10 entered into the hospital named Maya Kowalski, and what happened to her family. So what in the world could have been so bad at this hospital that the hospital and then a judge ordered her mother to stay away from her for 87 of those 90 days that she was hospitalized? Bata is her mother, and Jack Kowalski is her father. So Maya's father was able to have supervised, short, brief visits during the time that her mother, Bata, was kept away from the hospital. She has a younger brother who's about a year younger or so, and he could also visit with her, but these visits were scrutinized, monitored, listened to, and there was the control was in the hands of the social worker at that time. Maya's mother, Bata, during the time that she was ordered to stay away from her daughter, was able to have phone call visits with her daughter, but if you listen to those phone call arrangements, they are strictly monitored. They are interrupted, and with given to the mother lots of instructions and ongoing guidance. Okay, you're going to have to stop saying that now. I want you to switch conversations and topics now. You're going to have to get off the phone now, that sort of thing. But the Kowalski family has said that Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital medically kidnapped and battered their child while she was in their care, and caused further harm to her in different ways that I'll explain, and further harm to their family. In my opinion, they deserved every single penny of these millions of dollars that they were awarded. And I do wonder sometimes how hospitals, when they are hit with this type of a lawsuit that is on social media, on TV, the trial is publicized, there's a documentary made. How does Johns Hopkins continue on with their reputation? It's not saying that the whole hospital is at fault, that every department has a problem. Just focusing on what happened to this child and how many layers and layers of errors, in my opinion, were made. The jury obviously agreed because they awarded all and then some to this family. I'll now go over some of the things that the family says that accused Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital of doing to Maya Kowalski, and how it was proven that these things they accused that hospital of in that department specifically, with certain individuals that worked there specifically, were found responsible for doing things that the Kowalskis and the attorneys have said that they did. This story is shocking. It is sad, unfortunate that this has happened to this child, and it is one of those types of trauma and layers of trauma that are going to be with her for the rest of her life, as well as her brother Kyle, as well as her father, of course. And I'm sure many people in the hospital who tried hard to help her and to take a different stand in the situation as it progressed in such a blown up negative fashion. I'm sure that, of course, this tragedy is going to be with them for the rest of their lives too, but nothing compared to what happened to this girl. This started with Maya going to the emergency department of Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital in Florida. I'm going to keep referring to it as that because that's its name now. Apparently, it used to be All Children's Hospital, and then Johns Hopkins took over. She is brought to that emergency department, assessed. She is brought then to be admitted to the hospital where she spent the next 90 days. She was brought there because she was experiencing a flare-up of CRPS. I did a video on what CRPS is. I can link it below if you'd like to look at that. She was diagnosed with CRPS prior to all of this, and she went in for what her parents felt was a flare-up. They bring her to the emergency department with her usual symptoms of a flare-up, which is extreme pain. The pain usually is in Maya's legs, but her CRPS had gone inward, and she had a lot of abdominal pain and just generalized all body pain. She got to the emergency department that day of October 7th, 2016, and was held there for 90 days, like I mentioned, and then was court order released by court order to the care of her father, Jack. And I do wonder sometimes if there wasn't a court order and the extreme thing and occurrence that happened to them, if all of that did not happen, I don't know that she would have been released to her father. I wonder, we'll all never know, and that is because they were bound and determined to put her in a medical foster care home or system for what the hospital felt was best for her. Jack Kowalski started his legal action in 2018. Let's go over what he sued for. He not only sued Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital, but Jack Kowalski also sued the social worker named Kathy Beatty, who worked for the hospital, and he also sued Dr. Sally Smith, who was the lead physician at the Child Protective Services service that was used by the hospital. She didn't work directly for the hospital. She worked for a company that did investigations to rule out child abuse cases. Let's go over what he won. False imprisonment, battery, medical negligence, fraudulent billing, survivor claim for intentional infliction of emotional distress, wrongful death claim for intentional infliction of emotional distress causing death, Maya Kowalski's claim for infliction of emotional distress. How in the world can you prove that something a hospital did or didn't do caused the suicide of a family member? But that's exactly what happened. It was an 8-week-long trial, 2 days of deliberation, liable for 7 claims against them, and awarded the family $261 million in damages. But I don't think I mentioned earlier that $50 million of that was added on for punitive damages, which punitive just basically means that this is punishment to the hospital for doing what they did and to make a statement. The hospital, at the end of all of this, did want a mistrial, wanted to start all over, and the judge said no. So let's start at the very beginning. This is a really complicated case. There were over 40 people on the stand. There were medical experts from different places, not just from Johns Hopkins. There was a social worker who I've mentioned her name quite a bit because she was a big factor in all of this for doing things wrong. And there was the CPS doctor, the Child Protective Services doctor. There were other physicians. There was the ICU physician, nurses, billing department people from the hospital. The list goes on and on. Also, Maya herself took the stand, as well as her brother and her father. And if you watch it, wow, it's really powerful, very gut-wrenching to see and hear what this child at the time went through. What she went through is horrible. And hopefully things are in place all over hospitals so these types of things don't happen again. So starting at the beginning, Maya had an asthma exacerbation during the 4th of July, and there were fireworks going on, and she had a bout of asthma. Mom brought her to the hospital to be treated, but since that asthma exacerbation occurred, she developed what we now know as CRPS, chronic regional pain syndrome. But at the time, she just had these symptoms of terrible headache, inability to use her legs due to such extreme pain in her legs, burning sensation in her legs, lesions on her legs. Eventually, she had full body pain. This kind of pain with CRPS is not, it's when the event subsides and you're healed from the event, maybe in her case, asthma, different things for different people, injuries, crush injuries, broken bones, etc., or surgery site issues. But that can fade and heal, but the pain and the sensation and disruption of the pain response has occurred. I might add that Mom is a registered nurse. She takes and has always taken diligent notes on doctor appointments for her children. She is a working registered nurse. Dad at the time was working, I believe, as a firefighter. Again, they were in Florida. When Maya had this asthma event and then she continued on with pain, Mom took her to many doctors, took notes of all of it, finally found a physician named Dr. Anthony Kirkpatrick. Dr. Kirkpatrick diagnosed her with CRPS and began with his regimen of medication, which was ketamine. Now that's controversial. I think not all doctors are going to start children on that. At the time, she was 9 years old, but this is what this particular physician did, and it helped. And he further recommended that Maya Kowalski be brought to Mexico, where they do, for children, ketamine-induced comas. The parents followed through with that, and they did start these ketamine-induced comas for her in Mexico. I do not know how many, but the parents were told and they understood that this treatment with this ketamine coma has a 50% chance of death. But they were also told by Dr. Kirkpatrick that Maya had a 50% chance of death by not treating her. And so the parents were in just a terrible position. Okay, so the bottom line is the staff doesn't believe that she has CRPS. She was assessed for that, and the person who assessed her did not think that she had that. They don't condone giving her the high ketamine dose. They're not going to treat her the way that Mom is pushing and insisting and begging and pleading for them to treat her. Instead, what they did is they said, Mom has to be separated from her, that the CPS physician has now given a diagnosis of Munchausen's by proxy. So this is now saying to Mom, you can't be with your daughter because you're a danger to your daughter and you're causing you're causing harm to your child. You're making her sick. She isn't really sick. You're making her this way. So what I understood is that it was a nurse who explained to the family, particularly Dad, you have to leave too. So now Mom, you have to be separated from her. Dad, you have to be separated from her. There's going to be no visiting. This is a court order by a judge under state care. The parents are separated from her, and Mom can have phone calls with her, but those phone calls are monitored. And I think I mentioned earlier when I started this that the monitored phone calls weren't just someone sitting over there maybe, just kind of listening in on what's going on. No, they were listening to the entire thing, and the person who would be monitoring would be interjecting how the conversation should go, what you can say, what you can't say. Maya is just being asked by her mother, how are you feeling? What are they giving you? Did they give you medication today? No, change the subject. You're not supposed to ask her that. So little by little, all of mom's control is being taken away. She's immediately made to be a horrible mother, accused of child abuse, accused of making her daughter sick and causing all of this pain in her daughter. She cannot even speak with her openly or freely. And I might add that those were from daily to weekly. They changed over time from daily phone calls to weekly phone calls. She was further and further kept from her child. This was absolutely making her feel terrible, causing her to be depressed, causing problems with Maya. Maya said in the hospital how much she cried all the time. Christmas came. She's still separated. She still could not see her family. In comes the social worker, who is the go-between the Child Protective Services physician and the hospital and the parents. And this social worker assumed the role of the mother. She kissed her, she put her on her lap, she told Maya that your mother is in a mental institution and can't come see you. She told her you can't go home for Christmas, and absolutely shattered this child's heart. This social worker was sued. Nothing happened out of it because, again, these social workers are going to be strong in their idea that I'm a mandatory reporter. I reported this and I did nothing wrong. So what if I, hugged her? I was just trying to give her some, affection. Even though it's wrong and ethically it's wrong and a lot of the things you're doing are wrong, she's getting reprimanded, but she didn't get sued where she had to pay any money to the family. Eventually, after many weeks of this, Dad, Jack, and brother Kyle could have some visits with Maya. And Mom continued on with, at this point, the weekly phone visits. The staff is following suit. They are believing what the social worker and the CPS physician is saying. They're going with it as well. They're writing in their notes some pretty derogatory things about Mom, and even things about, I saw Maya moving her legs, so she's just trying to show she's in pain for her mother. It was a spiral that was so unfortunate and caused so much trauma to this family. Dr. Kirkpatrick, who originally diagnosed her with CRPS, did try to caution Dr. Sally Smith, and he stated, doing this to the family and having this Munchausen's by proxy diagnosis could result in needless and permanent harm to this child and the family. I'm the one who originally diagnosed her with this, and I still believe this is what she has. But that didn't make a difference in anything, nor did the other visits with the judge where the parents were, again, saying, please, let us, please release her. Let us take her somewhere else. Please, can you reassess this? Can we bring her to another physician to get another diagnosis to see outside of here if she has CRPS, just to show you that we're not making this up, that she really does have it, and this really is a true treatment for it. But they were denied that. And the last time that they were at court, Maya was in a separate room, and Maya asked, could I want to hug my mom. I need to see my mom. And that they said, please, to the judge, could we just give her a hug? Could Maya's mother just go give her a hug? And that was denied. 48 hours approximately after this final denial, and now 87 days later of separation from their daughter and their daughter's condition deteriorating, she's now in a wheelchair. They've done other things to her. They've held her down against her will, taken her clothes off to take pictures of her. These things have happened, and the mom is beside herself with anguish and grief. Bata then took her life by hanging. She did it in the garage of their home. Bata was 46 years old. And this was just, like it said, 2 days after the last court hearing, where the judge continued to side with the doctor's diagnosis of Munchausen's by proxy. Please excuse my dog trying hard to get up there. He has arthritis. So after this has happened and the final blow of not allowing them to hug, Bata, Maya's mom, takes her life. Kyle's mom takes her life. Jack's wife. She has a note that she wrote, and her note in part reads, "I'm sorry, but I can no longer take the pain of being away from Maya and being treated like a criminal. I cannot watch my daughter suffer in pain and keep getting worse while my hands are tied by the state of Florida and the judge. I cannot watch my daughter suffer." A psychiatrist spoke about what he, after researching everything, looking over all the notes, investigating all of this, and reading Beata's note that she wrote before dying from suicide. This is what he felt. This was a breakdown in Beata's sense of control by being separated, constant interference with her phone calls to her daughter, the judge not allowing her to hug or touch her daughter, knowing the mistreatment that's going on with her daughter, not being allowed to see her, go there, help her, or save her, or get her to safety. Suicide will allow her to be out of the picture and therefore come home to her dad and brother. It will allow Bata to be out of the picture, which Bata was labeled as being the reason that her child is sick. The psychiatrist called her death, in order to free her daughter, an altruistic surrender act. It was specifically to get her daughter safe and have the maltreatment and imprisonment of her daughter ended. Bata had exhausted every defense mechanism for herself and her daughter. This was all she felt she had left. After the suicide, Jack then, through a court order by a judge, was allowed to take Bata out of the hospital. He then brought her to another physician who did an exam on her and history on her and found to conclude that yes, she has CRPS. Yes, she was treated for CRPS, maybe not in the right way that a lot of people would think was correct. But that is what the parents were advised to do. They saw her suffering and they chose the 50% option of her getting into remission. Or there's that other option that she might not make it through those treatments, but that's what they chose. It spiraled absolutely out of control. And when you are relying on a doctor to say, I think this is what's going on with the parent is doing this, a lot of people follow suit, and a lot of people are afraid to speak up, and a lot of people, the other staff members perhaps, are appalled maybe by the way this mother's personality was, or the way that this child is behaving. But they're in crisis, and they're in the hospital, and this little girl is completely out of her mind in pain. And it's just such a tragic, horrible, unfortunate situation for everybody involved. I wanted to add that regarding those photos that I believe were ordered by Dr. Sally Smith and followed through with by the social worker Kathy Beatty, risk management at the hospital and the Department of Child and Families were aware of these photos, but the parents weren't aware of these photos. It was one more traumatic experience forced on this child without access to her parents. When Jack Kowalski sued Dr. Sally Smith and her company Suncoast, they settled their portion of the case for $2.5 million. And like I said, nothing that I know of has come out of the social worker Kathy Beatty, and she continues to hold her license and work in Florida. In addition, another physician who was on the stand speaking said that this trigger of her CRPS flare-up that initiated the emergency room visit could also have been from the ketamine, from ketamine withdrawals, because she hadn't been on it for a while or hadn't been on such a high dose. That was just another theory. But nonetheless, She went in for one thing, and mom was accused of another, and mom now has taken her life, and the family is profoundly devastated, and this has psychologically harmed them for the rest of their lives. They deserve every bit of the millions that they got. When they won, Maya had said that justice is showing that her mother was right all along, that her mom was a good mom, that her mom tried her best with what she had and what information that she was given. For the first time, Maya says, I feel like I got justice. So I want to know, what do you all think? Do any of you work in healthcare? What are your thoughts about this case, and did you watch the trial? Where are they now? Dr. Sally Smith from CPS, Child Protective Services, never faced any formal professional consequences for what happened to the Kowalski family. Sally Smith retired in the summer of 2023. The Kowalskis, though, if you recall, the Kowalskis did successfully sue the company that she worked for. Kathy Beatty, the social worker involved in all of this mess, is on LinkedIn, and it shows that she's currently employed still as a licensed social worker in Florida. The legal action against her was dropped by the Kowalskis. Attorney Greg Anderson is currently working with Maya on a criminal case of child abuse that was brought on at Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital during the 3-month stay. Attorney Nick Whitney continues to work on complex civil litigation cases. Maya's brother Kyle, from what I could see, is not on social media anywhere. There's not a lot about him that has been written, other than he continues to live at home with his father Jack and his sister Maya. Dad Jack is a retired firefighter living in Florida with his 2 children, Kyle and Maya. I have searched high and low for any information I can dig up about some of those nurses that testified and other people at the hospital. I could not find anything about the nurses, the physicians, the hospitalists, anybody, as far as anybody who got reprimanded or anybody who was fired. If anybody has any information on that, I would love to know. As far as Maya Kowalski, I hope that she's living her absolute best life and is healing. It will be a continual journey of healing, but she can heal. This has been horrific, what has happened to her. I know she's working with her attorney, Greg Anderson, right now on the case about the about the sexual abuse that took place during the 3 months that she was there. She's active on social media. She posts a lot of beautiful pictures of herself on Instagram. I wanted to say too that when you look up about Maya Kowalski's age, it says 17 everywhere. It doesn't say 17 a year or 2 ago. So I finally found her birthday. If it's correct, who knows? But she is actually, I believe, 18 years old. If anybody has some detailed information on that, let me know. You know, this was a really big, a really complex case. It involved so many people. It was basically a fight between professionals, between star witnesses on each side, physicians from this side, physicians from that side, saying something completely opposite. So there was just so much involved in this. There was clearly violations done. It's not that easy to prove these things, but they won. And Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital is responsible for all of the claims and accusations and allegations that the Kowalskis have taken them to court over. Although no executives, nurses, doctors, and other people that were working at the time in that capacity on that pediatric floor, involved with Maya in the ICU, all those people, like I said, I couldn't find a single thing that talked about them being fired or reprimanded, losing their job, nothing. But there is information of execs who stepped down, many of them, and even a pediatric heart surgery department that closed down at Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital. At this particular hospital, November 2018, it was shown that the mortality rate in its pediatric heart surgery program was very high. The surgeons in the pediatric heart surgery program made serious mistakes and procedures went wrong in unusual ways. Surgeons in the program had lost needles in 2 of the infants' chests, and infection rates of these children spiked. This all started after the departure of the program leader, Dr. James Quintessenza, after hospital officials had disputes with him. Investigation occurred then in all of this in 2019, and the Florida Department of Health fined the institution $804,000, and the hospital had to settle with 11 families for over $40 million. At that time, execs did step down. People, I'm sure, were reprimanded. Kathy Beatty and Dr. Sally Smith continue to deny any wrongdoing. They say, we're mandatory reporters, we did our job when we did our job right, and we're not backing down on it. What does Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital say about this particular situation that occurred with Maya Kowalski after the trial was over, even though they were found to be responsible? What they say is the standard of care was met. We did everything that we could with the information that we had. They continue to stand by saying standard of care was met, we took care of her, we offered her PT and OT, we had to give her ketamine because she had come in having had some high doses in her system and in the past, so we had to taper her off that, taper her off other medications, which they did, and they claim that they did a great job. So some of the things that they did offer her that seemed to help, that's wonderful. But to be so steadfast in saying, I did absolutely nothing wrong, when you tore apart the family, you lied to the child, you crossed ethical boundaries when you are working in pediatrics by kissing, putting a child on your lap, lying to the child, tearing her parents away from her, not even allowing her to have a hug with her mother. Her mother then dies from suicide. Dad has to come tell her that. She missed a birthday. She missed other holidays. She missed Christmas. Everything was taken from her during a 90-day period of time in her life that people are saying we didn't do anything wrong. I really encourage you to not only watch the documentary, but also to watch the trial. Watch some of this trial. It is fascinating. You're going to hear it directly from these people. I just compiled a 8-week-long trial and 90-day hospitalization and 40 witnesses' statements. I just put it into this. I don't know how long this will be, maybe 40 minutes, I don't know. But there's so many details. There's so much to learn about this case. Please let me know your thoughts, and please share with me, if you have watched the documentary, share with me what you think about this. If you like conversations like this and medical mishaps or stories or different information about facts and myths about medicine, please consider subscribing.